Can't buy me love, love, can't buy me love. I'll buy you.
Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Going to talk a little bit about something that's really had a profound impact on our culture. Seems to be a mega business when you look at it, and that's the Church of Scientology. And we got a guest today, Lori Hodgson, and she's going to talk a little bit about her experience and how she believes that Scientology rips families apart. You can find more about Lori on Twitter by following her, Lori_Hodgson. That's HODGSON at Twitter. And welcome to the program, Lori.
Oh, hi, Kevin. Thank you for having me on your show.
You bet. Tell us a little bit about your experience and your background.
Well, I was introduced to Scientology when I was 13 years old. My mom told me it would help me with some communication skills. I was very shy, so, I wish I could go back in time, and I didn't step foot in that door because 30 years later, when I decided to leave Scientology because of the things I saw they were doing to my children, now I'm not allowed to have my children in my life. Scientology will not let them talk to me, so my family is completely broken apart.
How old were your kids when you separated from Scientology? And I guess they were very involved themselves.
They actually weren't prior to when they were 15. I kind of took a break, and then I got back in with my first husband, who was a Scientologist, but I was still a little standoffish, just that common sense, I guess, that I didn't really want to go down and donate all my money to them. And so, I did do things, but I wasn't as involved when I was younger. And when my children each turned 15, so Jessica's the oldest, when she was 15, she was recruited to work for Scientology by Scientology recruiters behind my back. She went down with my ex-husband at that time. We got divorced, and they, after a couple hours, totally manipulated her to want to drop out of school, and she was doing great in school. She wanted to be a veterinarian and go to college, and after a few hours, she comes home and says, "Mom, I want to drop out of school. This is my calling. I want to save the world. I'm going to work for Scientology." And Kevin, I fought it for like 6 or 7 months. But when you're in Scientology and you don't agree with them, what they did is they turned my kids against me. She started getting really bad grades. She wouldn't barely talk to me. She was angry with me. I had to keep going down to Scientology because I had to agree. It's like my parental rights were completely violated. And I finally agreed that she would go to Scientology school. Little did I know, after 3 months, she graduated with a bogus high school degree and worked for the church. And after 3 months, she wanted to leave, and she had a $12,000 debt.
Wow.
From
going to a bogus high school.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
and by the way, and forgive me, we got a lot of questions and only a limited amount of time. And so if you could kind of contain your questions would be great. But this is very, very interesting information. And I've heard a lot about these things. And I get the impression that the last thing the Scientologists want as a group is a well-educated membership, because they're probably more likely to revolt.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about the actual indoctrination process. How do they indoctrinate people into the program? And that's the terminology that I hear used. Talk a little bit about that.
How it starts is you take a personality test. And what this test does is it shows your weaknesses. And, we all have certain weaknesses, and you just go in there and they tell you this class will help you with that. And you start taking the classes, and they do actually help. You pay for these classes. They're not that expensive at that time. And then you want to just keep improving, and you're basically, not ordered, but kind of controlled to do the next level. And they cost a lot of money. I only made it a third of the way up to Scientology, and I paid about $30,000 or more. To reach the top level is over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's very expensive. And you want to reach the top. You just think that that's going to be your answer, your eternity when you're a Scientologist.
Right. That's where you're going to reach some higher enlightened level.
Right. And you want that when you're in, but then you start seeing things, that you're not happy with. And if you say anything, you're pulled in, and it's actually made so it's your problem. You don't understand something. You have to agree with it, and if you don't, you're brought in to say it's your problem, your misunderstood word, or it's very hard when you don't agree.
Lori, I get the impression that the theology of Scientology is secondary to the so-called personal development side. So, like, in other words, virtually everyone who initially gets in Scientology is about personal development, trying to help themselves, and then over time and rather slowly, the doctrine kind of comes in. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it actually is to the point where it helps you, and then your responsibility is to get everyone else in Scientology. That's the goal, because they believe if everyone's in Scientology, then we're going to have a planet that doesn't have criminals in it, and it's just going to be a sane planet. And they really believe that, so you want to help people get in.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Tell us a little bit about, and so really theology itself is almost secondary, though, correct? Or does the theology become important over time?
I never reached that level. Like I say, I went a third of the way up, but I never really learned about God. I was baptized a Lutheran, so I had that upbringing until I was 13 years old. And I did believe in God. You could ask 10 different Scientologists, and they will give you a different answer. So it was more of a self-help and then trying to help everybody else get involved in Scientology.
So how high up is a John Travolta or a Tom Cruise?
I'm not sure, but I have a feeling they're probably at the top level, which is called OT8, OT7 or OT8, but I'm not certain. But I know they're up in that area, which is at the top.
And you went to OC what?
No, I went below the levels, just the beginning part.
Wow. So it's really daunting. It's all about the next level, isn't it?
It is, and you just want to keep taking classes, and you want to learn to be a counselor so you can help other people. And it's hard to take a break. They think something's wrong if you want to take a break for 6 months. They say, well, then something's wrong. You didn't have the wins you were supposed to have on that last course. So they bring you back in, and sometimes you have to redo it.
Yeah, and I guess, so to discourage you from giving up at all, or to take a break, they're going to tell you're going to have to pay for all that and go through all of it again. So they really don't want you to have that breather, because there's a high likelihood you'll never come back.
That's right. That is so true. Or you might talk to someone that might be critical of the church and listen to them, and it might wake you up.
And so you were involved for how many decades?
3.
Three decades.
Over 30 years, and I finally resigned because my second child, Jeremy, I let him go in this place called the Sea Organization, which is an elite level of Scientology, and they promised me he would have a schooling, that I could call him. I only got to talk to my son 5 times in 7 months. They did not give him schooling, so they broke the law. He was 15 and 16. I reported it to the authorities, and then when he wanted to leave, they made him sign a $3 million gag contract. So basically, if he would speak what he saw when he was there, they threatened him and said he would have to pay Scientology $3 million.
What?
He's 16, and also he would get kicked out of Scientology. So when he comes home, I knew something was wrong with him, and after 7 months, he slipped and told my mom this. And we were already upset about everything. Once we heard this, that was it. Yeah. I told my kids, I'm not going to be a part of this organization. They lied to me, and now they're threatening you with this?
Yes.
And he's like, I'm not supposed to say anything. I mean, he was terrified. We know it's not legal, but this boy at 16 thought it was.
Oh, yeah, it's unbelievable. And I guess it gives new meaning to the old saying, I sold my soul to the company store. Where they talked about people following the era of slavery, where people, really didn't have any true currency. They had these vouchers that the, mine or whatever they worked at gave them, and it was really worthless outside of everything owned for the mine. It was really just a form of indentured servitude. And that sounds like exactly what you have in Scientology.
Yes, for sure. And when I told my kids I wanted to resign, I said, I don't want you to lose your father. And if you want to do Scientology, then that's your business. But I don't want to do it anymore after what I've seen. That's all I did, is say I didn't want to. And after 5 days, their father told my kids, if you don't disconnect from your mother, meaning you can never talk to her again, then I'm going to disconnect from you, because no one's going to take my eternity away from me. So that's before I even spoke out. Kevin, now I speak out because I never want a parent to go through what I've gone through.
Lori, I got to end it with that, but it was a fascinating conversation. Do you have a website? I know we have a Twitter account for you, which I've already mentioned, Lori_Hodgson, HODGSON. Do you have a website that you want to refer people to?
I don't have a website, but they can go to LoreRips.org, and he's a reporter, and he's done all my stories, and he'll do all my current stuff. He also is a great reporter for letting everybody know what's going on with Scientology.
Thanks so much, Lori. I appreciate you, and Godspeed in your efforts with your kids.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
When we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here, and certainly this interview will be found over there at USAToreview.com. While they're like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter, and this is The Price of Business.